You know, some journeys are measured in miles, but others are measured by what you're forced to leave behind. Today, we're going to trace the incredible odyssey of a man named Peter Dane, a journey that cost him absolutely everything he had and then somehow asked for even more.
So picture this. The year is 1861. The United States is on the very edge of civil war. It's a conflict that would pit neighbor against neighbor and literally tear the entire nation in two. It was a time of just incredible division and uncertainty.
But at that exact same moment, all the way across the Atlantic, thousands of people were starting a totally different kind of journey, a journey towards America. Theirs wasn't fueled by conflict, though. It was fueled by an unshakable faith, as they left everything they'd ever known for a promised land out in Utah.
And among them was one of the most remarkable characters you will ever meet, a man known simply as Peter Dane.
See, back home in Denmark, Rasmus Peter Christensen, that was his real name, but everyone called him Peter Dane. He wasn't just getting by, no, he was thriving. He was a man of property, of skill, of reputation. He was a big deal.
I mean, this guy had truly built an amazing life. He owned a huge brick kiln. In fact, many of the houses he built are actually still standing today. He also ran a super popular bakery, and he came from a family of lawyers. So this isn't a story about a man desperate for a new start. He already had a great one. Physically, Peter was tiny. He stood just 4 feet 10 inches tall. But his personality, it was enormous. He was known all over as a great comedian, a fantastic storyteller, and just this town character that you just couldn't ignore.
And he had this signature move, this trick that was so bizarre it basically became his trademark. Peter could, and often would, just stand perfectly on his head and click his wooden shoes together. And as you're going to see, this was way more than just a simple party trick.
Now, while his family and his friends were getting completely swept up by the message of these new Mormon missionaries, Peter, well, he was doubtful. He was a practical guy, a man of business and brick. He'd let them stay in his home, sure, but he kept his distance from their faith.
And then, a moment that changed everything. The missionaries asked if they could give a blessing to his 3-year-old daughter, Marianne, who was blind. Peter said okay. So after the blessing, one of the men holds up an object and just asks her, "What is this?" Her sight, miraculously restored, she looks right at it and says, "It's a spoon." For a skeptic like Peter Dane, that was it. Seeing was believing. His conversion was total. It was absolute. And it would come at a price that is almost impossible to imagine.
Peter didn't just join the church, he threw his entire fortune behind it. He sold his brickyard, his bakery, everything. He paid for his own family's massive journey to America, and, get this, he funded the passage for dozens of other people in his community. They all promised to pay him back. They never did.
So he and his family boarded a ship called the Monarch of the Sea, and they were just one family among 955 Latter-day Saint immigrants, all of them packed onto this one single boat for a 5-week journey across the Atlantic.
The journey to their promised land quickly turned into an absolute odyssey of grief. On board the ship, measles broke out. His youngest daughter, Karen Marie, died and was buried at sea. Then, on the train from New York, Marianne, the very same daughter whose sight had been restored, she also died from the illness. And then shortly after that, in Nebraska, his young son Sven passed away too.
The human cost of this journey was just devastating. Just let this sink in. He left Denmark a wealthy man with a wife and 6 children. He arrived in Utah completely penniless with his wife and only 3.
Having paid this ultimate price, Peter Dane now faced the unbelievable challenge of building a new home, literally from the ground up.
When they finally settled in the small town of Moroni, Utah, their first home wasn't a house, not one built of the fine brick he used to make. No, it was a dugout, a hole carved into the side of a riverbank, with a feather mattress hung over the entrance for a door.
So here he is. He's a stranger in a brand new land. He's got no money. He's grieving the loss of 3 of his children, and he is still responsible for the family he has left. He had to find a way to survive.
He started by trying to catch and sell fish, but in a tiny pioneer settlement like that, customers were pretty scarce. Business was terrible. So, facing total failure, he did the only thing he could. He resorted to his unique and undeniable talent.
He went right to the town center, tied cowbells to his wooden shoes, climbed up onto his wagon wheel, stood on his head, and started clicking his heels together. A crowd gathered instantly, of course, and in almost no time, he had sold every single fish.
And this is how he rebuilt his life. He used his old skills to burn bricks for the new homes being built in Moroni. He used his charm to peddle goods from town to town. And he used that giant personality to bring joy to other people, entertaining homesick workers and becoming the official town clown in every single parade.
But his legacy, it's about so much more than just rebuilding. It's about understanding the real meaning behind that famous trick of his.
His work ethic was just legendary. As one person later wrote, it seemed like Peter was trying to do all the work in the world and simply ran out of time before he could finish. And that peculiar headstand, it was never just a silly trick to sell fish or get a laugh. It was a statement. I mean, think about it. For a man who had lost his home, his fortune, and half of his children, for a man whose world had been turned completely upside down, this was how he chose to face it. It was an act of humor right in the face of grief, an act of defiance against despair, and it was a symbol of finding perfect balance when life is doing its absolute best to knock you off your feet. And it makes you wonder, doesn't it? How do we find our own balance when our world is turned upside down?